Small piece, but again, the varieties are being planted are all dwarf varieties, and I think they're getting close to 200 different fruit and nut trees out on that property. So again, there's going to be a great opportunity for different varieties to be looked at, see how they compete, and out of those, maybe 2 or 3 are competitive. But again, if that's 2 or 3 that now can be taken to the farmer's market, put into CSAs, used for local production, I think it'd be a great benefit for, not only the market farmer, but also a person with a backyard garden that wants to say, why, can't I get a steady variety of cherries or apples in my backyard? This may be just a good overall site to gain information for Boulder County.
The real goal is to, for me personally, is look at 3 varieties that come out of there, and then to go put a full acre just of those varieties and see what kind of works good in that soil and in this climate, and then make the jump up to bigger production based on that variety and tasting. But yeah, they'll definitely, I'm sure they'll end up in the variety baskets whenever they can. Yeah.
So what we're doing is looking at new varieties of fruit trees and nut trees that have the ability to produce, but also compete with things that are being grown on the West Slope or in even further away areas like California. So what we're hoping to do with this project is allow Mark to provide his farming experience, us to provide the land and the trees, and then Joel to provide the expertise through Carl Estate Extension. The taxpayers then out of that potentially get the ability to see, here's some new cultivars, here's some new varieties that may not only work for open space and Mark Guttridge, but may work on my property and allow me to gain some new crops, some new markets, and make this something that is competitive here in Boulder County.
As far as selecting what we decided to plant in this project, there were a number of considerations that went in. I already talked about some of the kind of environmental issues, but also I think it's important to have a diversity of these different varieties of fruit for a couple of reasons. One, consumers want diversity, they want choices and different selections. Two, we know from all kinds of, thousands of years of farming history that some varieties will just do better in a certain locale than others will. And part of this process is weeding out those that won't work. Now, of course, I have some hunches and I have a little bit of background in this. So out of the thousands and thousands of named varieties of apples, for instance, there are thousands of varieties of apples. I think that here we're probably limited to somewhere under 100 varieties of apples that will do well. And so I used basically my background. I was in touch with a lot of growers who do have the odd apple tree here and there around our county and around the Front Range to see what's been successful. And then in talking to growers around the country, a lot of different breeders, nursery people, after explaining and conversing with them about our conditions here, got a lot of insights and input from those types of folks about what we'd have the best chance of having succeed for us here. And so, of these 115 trees and the dozens of varieties that are out there, it can be a little sad to think about this, but I fully anticipate that some of them will be failures. And that's part of this kind of research, is accepting a few hard knocks with the success that I also anticipate we'll have, is a lot of success. Based on the budget that I was given to work with here, I ended up with 115 fruit trees going in. That's what we planted here on Earth Day this year.
We had a volunteer day where people came out, and we had it was Earth Day. We had a little Earth Day tree planting, and had a bunch of people come out and put them all in. It was a good learning experience for everybody. Joel was here describing all the varieties and what we're doing. A lot of people are interested in doing their own trees, so it's kind of a good tutorial how we put them in, how we staked them, tied them up, and all the wind protection, how come we space them exactly 10 feet apart, and so they're all varieties that can bear fruit. Their flowers a little bit later, so they don't get hit by our spring frost here, and their varieties they're a little bit faster, so that we can get a harvest before the fall frosts come. And they're all dwarfed on the whole apple industry is kind of shifting to semi-dwarfed trees where they never get more than 10 feet tall.
Mark is the farmer here, of course, and so basically today you're going to help us get this orchard established. Okay, so the map here shows on one side all of the apples and pears, which is referred to as the pome group. Botanically, that's what those fruits are called. And the other side is the drupe block, which is botanically what all the stone fruits, peaches, cherries, plums, that kind of thing, are referred to as. So these 5 rows here are where the apples and then pears will go in. The 3 rows at that end is where all those drupes will go in. These trees are what we call bare root. You can see why, okay? Now, while this looks like just some kind of weak little twig, this is actually a really good quality tree. It's gonna grow for us better than something we bought at a nursery that was potted up into potting mix, believe it or not, okay? And so, a couple things I wanna show you. See this funny little angle here? Okay, turns out that with fruit trees, it's really important, they're all grafted, okay? And so this variety up here is Honeycrisp. We all know these Honeycrisp apples, yum, okay? But with all of our fruit trees, they're all grafted, okay, onto some kind of a rootstock that is going to be a much healthier, more vigorous rootstock than if Honeycrisp itself just grew its own roots. Okay, so this is another kind of apple that would make cruddy apples if we let it grow and flower and produce apples. Totally cruddy, little bitter apples. One little bud of Honeycrisp was notched into the bark on here. Once that Honeycrisp bud started to grow, they cut the top of the rootstock tree off, okay? And so in the future, if we ever see any branches coming from this section, we know that genetically it's that rootstock with little bitter cruddy apples, okay? And so those would all be just stripped off, okay? Fortunately, we don't see a whole lot of that, but basically we want nothing to grow off of here. We want our Honeycrisp apples, okay? Turns out, not only does it have a strong and vigorous root system, but this will dwarf the tree on top of it. Okay, because if we just grew Honeycrisp trees or any of these apple trees on their own roots, they would end up being 35 to 40 foot tall trees. A tree like this on a dwarfing rootstock is only ever going to get about 10 feet tall. We can go 20, 30 years down the road. It's only ever going to get about 10 feet tall. The canopy is going to be at most 10 by 10. So we keep almost the entire canopy is producing that high quality fruit. Also, it's pickable by hand. Okay, any of the management practices, the pruning, we just throw ladders right out of the whole equation. I know from experience that Honeycrisp grows and works very well here. This variety is a really good choice. What we're going to be looking at in these first several rows is which rootstock is the most appropriate for here, for our soils, for our climate, to grow Honeycrisps on. And I should point out, the goal of doing this whole thing is because nobody's ever done it before. Okay, and we have a lot of small growers like Mark here in our county and other counties up and down the Front Range that really would like to be putting in fruit crops, tree fruit crops. How many of you as consumers would like to be able to buy local tree fruits? I would, okay. So that's why I thought, hey, let's do this, okay? Let's put some public funding and public effort into evaluating what are the best varieties and combinations of rootstocks and varieties that we can use so that a few years down the road when these trees start really producing, we can evaluate and I'll be able to give growers throughout our region really solid recommendations so that they don't have to just kind of pick and choose and throw stuff out there and hope that it works. When your mortgage and your paycheck depends on it, you don't want to just rely on hope. You would like to have, or I would want to have, some research to back that up. So that's what we're doing here today. So I dug the hole this deep because I wanted it that deep. I wanted the soil loosened that deep. But if we were just to plant this tree, okay, and here's a couple key things. See that scar from where the rootstock was cut off? We always want that to be pointing north, okay, so this way, all right? So you always want that pointing north, and you always want it to be a couple inches above grade, above the ground, once everything's planted, okay? So you can imagine it's gonna be right about there. So we're gonna backfill this, but if we left all the soil that we just shovel back into the hole, that loose underneath it, it's gonna want over time to settle like that, and we don't want that. So the first thing, let me just grab that. First thing I'm going to do, and I know this seems a little counterintuitive, we just dug the hole, right? Is I'm going to put some soil back in the hole right in the middle of the bottom there. And I'm actually going to stomp on it a little bit to kind of firm that down. And now, look at that. What do you think? One person can hold the tree and just position it. The other person can backfill the hole with soil. We're going to allow the water, when we water all these in, we're going to allow the water to settle the soil down around the roots, okay? We don't want to compact. There we are. The first tree is planted, okay? Now, yay! Now, one of the things you have to keep in mind with these dwarf trees, stake the trees. So what you're going to want to do is have, see these nubbins? Okay? You always want those pointing away from the tree, because when we use the wires to strap the tree together, or tie it on here, we want to be able to kind of hook them on these. So about 18 inches to either side. Zach, you want to demonstrate how the post pounder is used? So you lift it and kind of give it a little help as it's dropping. See the little shield shape? Okay, so that little shield shaped thing at the bottom there, you want to get that an inch or two below grade. Okay, that's going to just help anchor the post. And then, and here come our straps and wire. Right about this height, okay, is where we're going to tie this tree. So we're going to put that around one side, line up the eyelets, put the wire through, and we're going to twist the wire on here. And then somebody holds the tree vertical, get any kinks out of the wire, and then Zach's going to go ahead and wrap the post. Again, same process. And then Zach's going to pull tension out of there. Now watch this. Watch if we pull real hard. See how that's kind of flexing? We don't need that, okay? So just right there where it's held in place. That's that, okay? Then the last stage of the process is to water it in, but you won't individually be responsible for that. We've got this water tank here, and we'll be running down the rows and watering everything in. So I appreciate, and Mark appreciates, that you're all here to help. So that's what I'm here to do, is make sure you know what you're doing, you feel comfortable, and we hope you have fun doing this. And then we hope that you will come by and watch and visit this orchard over the years as it progresses, and hopefully the whole community, we benefit from this for many years down the road. So the first thing that I think we should do is just start digging holes, because they're all going to have a hole dug for them.
I came out today to help with the orchard because it's a great community project. I've never planted a tree in my life. They told me to bring a shovel. This is what I brought, so obviously I didn't know what I was doing. Great, beautiful way to enjoy our Colorado weather, meet some new people, and as we were just educated on, we can come by here in the years to come and watch the trees grow that we're planting.
This is a special project because it's going to allow for more local produce, which I think is really a great thing in this day and age.
I wanted to give back to the community. We go to the farmers market, and we love coming to Elwood Farm. So we thought we could give something back to them because they give so much to us.
The idea of giving back to the community, not only with the fruits that these trees are going to grow, but also what it's giving back to the environment.
I'm out here volunteering today because it's Earth Day and I love the earth and I'm trying to help it.
Well, there are great folks here putting together an orchard, so it's lots of fun.
I'm not a big fan of grocery store apples, I've got to admit. They're beautiful, they look fine, They're all waxed up and shiny, but they're not very good eating.
The rewarding part is to be able to eat your own apples off the tree. When we pick our varieties off of our trees, they seem to be a whole lot better than anything you can buy in the stores. Well, that's it, I guess.